I'm just kidding. So anyway, I got my set here a little bit ghost-faced. It was a funny joke. No? Alright, fine. Be salty like that. Today I'm going to be ranking all 7 Ghostface projects. So you're probably thinking, Scream 7 hasn't come out yet. I'm actually including the Scream TV series because I do count it, even though it's not connected to the franchise, it's still a Scream property, so I'm adding it. So, without further ado, let's get into it. These are my opinions only. So, and I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. So, coming in at last place is everyone's last, probably.
What's your favorite scary movie?
That has to be Scream 3 for me. Scream 3, I think, has some fresh ideas. This is one of the franchises that I feel like stays consistent, stays fresh and new. I don't think there's a single bad movie in this franchise. I just think Scream 3 is the weakest one. Now, hear me out. They had a lot of good ideas in Scream 3, like the voice changer thingy where it can mimic other people's voices. That was a cool idea. I just didn't feel like they explored that well enough in that. I mean, the killer was also unpredictable. I didn't see Sydney's sister, or Sydney's brother, being the killer, which happens to be the crew director guy. You kind of forget who he is because he's so forgettable. That's why you don't remember who he is, the killer is. So anyway, though, I think this has some fun action. It has some fun action sequences, has some good chase scenes. I just think it's the weakest personally. So, not really much to it. So it's just a bland, but also enjoyable time at some point. Alrighty, coming in next
What's your favorite scary movie?
will be the Scream TV series, the one I include on this ranking. The Scream TV series has 3 seasons. I'm not ranking them on here, so it's just going to be the show as a whole. Now, I've actually really liked the show. I think the worst part that takes away from it is the acting. Some of the acting can be really bad sometimes. But, I mean, you can tell it's low budget. I mean, they didn't even get the actual Ghostface mask until the 3rd season, which also takes a point from it away. Anyway, I do think the characters get developed. I feel like a Scream TV series would be a good idea if done right. And it would give the characters more depth and it could move the plot forward, and it could just really do well on the characters' perspective. Like, you can just feel for them and all that. So, but I think this is an okay show. It's not terrible. It's not bad either. I don't know how to feel about it usually. Sometimes actually Scream 3 and the TV series will swap in my ranking. But I do like some of the characters. There are a lot of characters that do stand out. The killer in the 1st season and the 2nd season they're not predictable actually, so there's a plus right there. You can't predict who it is. If you did, then I don't know. Maybe I'm just fucking bad at movies. Anyway, I do think that there's standout characters. But the most thing that probably takes away is the 3rd season. The 3rd season completely sets up these new characters, and you just got like kind of good development with the old characters, so you're kind of left to just leave it to your imagination what happened to those other characters. And I didn't necessarily like that. I didn't feel like they had the story ended the way they should have. Although it was a season finale, it just didn't feel like their characters. They could have done more with the characters there. But then they just kind of focused on some other characters, which were likable too, but also the serial killers are predictable in Scream Season 3. So that's also a point taken away. But it also is surprisingly my favorite season. Look, I know the first 2 seasons had a lot of development, but I do like this one the most because it's the most gory, and I just like the characters personally a little more. But I feel like the original cast of the first 2 seasons should have had that closure. Alrighty. Coming in next, a lot of you might disagree here, but it's my opinion.
favorite scary movie?
I'm gonna go with Scream 5, so aka Scream 2022. Okay, this would have been a little one more up my ranking like a year ago, I'd say. But I do like this movie, but it's basically the same movie as the original. Now, believe it or not, if you guys aren't Ghostface fans, I don't feel like these movies are repetitive. Like I said, there's always something refreshable about it. And even if the story is the same, there's at least something added new onto it, or some other new character that keeps it interesting and keeps you invested into the stories. I don't think every single movie in this franchise, I don't think, is a repeat of itself, except for Scream 5. Doesn't mean it's bad, but I do feel like some of the original cast members get done dirty. Dewey especially, because spoiler, he fucking dies. I mean, they kind of made him into a badass, which I like, but I wish they kind of would have explored more of that. I do like these new characters. I feel like in Scream 6, and we'll get there, you get to have a better understanding of these characters. And the characters in here you don't really connect with much yet. With them, they're just kind of just thrown in there, and they're kind of thrown in there because they want to build up the legacy characters. Like, obviously, you want new legacy characters. Yeah, I mean, you want some other characters like fresh, right? Like, you don't want just Sydney. You don't want Gale all the time. It has to be a new characters, and I feel like this is a very modernized movie. So, in other words, they had to bring in new characters to move the plot forward. But I felt like it was a good reason to bring the original cast back, because then those same characters that are experiencing Ghostface can go and reach out to the people who've experienced Ghostface, like Sidney Prescott, and that was a good way of bringing him back. And I think this is a fun movie, honestly. I do think some chase scenes are really well shot. The movie's well shot. The ending is also pretty good. The killers are predictable. You can guess who they are right away. But actually, the killers are really good in this movie. And Tara, I think it is, or Sam, it's Sam Carpenter, becomes a badass at the end of this movie. So I think it's a win-win. I think it's an okay movie, but I do think it's the most repetible, if that's even a word, out of this franchise. Coming in next,
What's your favorite scary movie?
has got to be Scream 2. Now, this might be a little higher on everyone's list, but I do feel like every time I watch it, it's kind of aged pretty well. Now, some of you guys might disagree with me. You might still think it's an awesome sequel. And don't get me wrong, it's up there with one of the best horror sequels. But I don't feel like it has as much heart or soul into it as the first one. I feel like some of the characters are off stale. Like, they're just a little stale to me. Like, Sydney's new boyfriend was kind of you were kind of expected him to be the killer, but he's not, surprisingly. So he was just kind of a character thrown in there. Also, Cotton, I feel like, is also a little underutilized in here. But that's my most negatives with the film. Otherwise, I do think it has some of the best Ghostface chases in history. Dewey and Gale Weathers, their relationship continues in this and always puts a smile on my face whenever those two are on screen together. It just slaps a smile on my face every time they're together. Like, it's kind of sad, seeing what happened to Dewey in Scream 5. That's what hit the emotion about it. But I do think that the Ghostface killer in here is also as strong as the first. I didn't really necessarily buy into Billy's mom was the killer part, but Mickey he's honestly one of the most underrated Ghostfaces. Really cool. And I feel like this movie also touches up on a lot of meta, because these movies are supposed to be super meta. So, like, they kind of point out that sequels are supposed to be bigger, bloodier, bigger budget, more character development, all that stuff. So it's pretty cool in that genre. Also didn't like how one of my favorite characters, Randy Meeks, dies. Also, but he was also a great standout. But I just didn't like how they killed him. But otherwise, I think this is a fun Scream movie and a great sequel. Coming next on my list
favorite scary movie?
Is actually Scream 4. So I remember when I first saw this movie, or before I saw it actually, I did not want to see it. I don't know why. It just looked fucking terrible to me. So I gave it a shot because I was rewatching it before I went to go see Scream 6. And Scream 4 was a shocker to me. So hear me out. The first 10 minutes is like a rehash of stab movies, which it kind of got repetitive at first. And I was not into the story. And I'm just like, really? Why do you gotta do this? But from the rest of the movie, this movie's fucking awesome. Oh my god. How underrated Scream 4 is. Honestly, one of the best Ghostface portrayals also. Jill Roberts is just fucking crazy. Honestly, one of the best Ghostfaces. Hear me out. One of the best written and best Ghostfaces. I totally buy her performance. Really well done. This movie's shot really weird. It looks like there's Vaseline on the camera, but I guess that's actually how they did it. They also say super meta in here. They stick to the original roots and stuff like that. So you get Sidney Prescott back, you get Dewey and Gale again, which is cool. So even though it feels the same, there's still stuff added onto it. So there's a couple new characters just for them to get killed off, you know. Brutal kills. This might be some of the brutalest kills in the franchise, honestly. Honestly, really love this movie. It's just honestly underrated. I don't know why on most people's list I've seen this is a little bit lower, like 2 spaces lower. But I actually think that this movie is actually really good. So yeah. In number 2.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Is Scream 6. This was hard. And I'm being serious about that. People think it's a dead obvious giveaway that the first Scream is in number 1 place. When I saw Scream 6, hear me out, it almost tops the original for me. I really liked and enjoyed Scream 6. Wow. I don't think any other classic horror movie that's modernized, so like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, has been as good as the original. So like the 2022 version of Texas Chainsaw I can't talk today. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not as good as the original. But I feel like Scream 6 is one of those sequels that actually almost top the original. Jenna Ortega is a huge standout, so is Sam Carpenter, and they're kind of grieving over the last movie, so Scream 5. And this is where I feel like some of the best character development in the franchise comes. You get to know the core 4, which is the Meeks kids. I don't know their names, I don't remember. Cindy, I think? Meeks? I don't know the other guy. But yeah, everybody is the core 4, which is a fucking badass name, I think. Really cool. You get to really feel the characters. There's 2 additions to the cast. I think this is a pretty good Scream movie. The kills are absolutely brutal. Most brutal in the franchise. I think this is the Scream that actually tops all the others. And honestly, the opening scene was really unique, I thought, and they were really trying to go for something different in this movie. But then at that ending, I did feel like it was a little repetitive from the last movies, but they did try something really neat and kind of unique that the franchise had never done before. And that was, they revealed who the killer was right away. But they weren't really the killers, but they were gonna kill people, but then they get killed off, and then there's another killer out there. You're just like, oh my god. So you think he's the killer, which he is technically, but then the actual killer, the main killer of the movie, kills the other killer. It's kind of a unique just throw in, but it still keeps it fresh. And that was a unique opening. Honest to God. The Ghostface is the most creepy, I think, in here too. He's rocking a shotgun. There's so many iconic scenes from this movie too, like just about as much as the original. Like the, I wish I would have gone to that one place. I remember they did a thing last year where they would open up where they filmed that gas station scene, and you got to go in there and they'd have Ghostface merch in it, and I would have just fucking. I'm so glad I'm hopefully going to Fright Fest this year. Oh god, I gotta see some Scream stuff. Anyway, though, I think the intensity of this movie is on an all-time high in the franchise. I mean, it's brutal. There was this one scene that tense built up really well in this scene, and I was on the edge of my seat. It was where they were like trying to pull like this wooden thing where the people would walk on like over like 3 stories of fucking buildings, and Ghostface is trying to chase after them and stuff. It's so intense. Like, this movie knows how to build up intensity. It has a great soundtrack, has great character development, and you don't really know who the Ghostface is until the end, which actually ends up being the cop. Oh, also, Kirby, she returns. She doesn't die in Scream 4. I thought that was awesome. Those were fan theories, but they're not fan theories anymore. They are now facts. But the other two, this is what I didn't like about this movie. And that's what brought it back for me. I thought that was a fair thing to do. Was they basically reveal who the killer is. And I'm not kidding you. There's a line where they're kind of being all meta and stuff like that in character. They're like, oh, well, you're the nerd kid, so you would be a suspect. And you like to have sex a lot, da-da, so you're a suspect too. And it ends up being exactly those 2 killers. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Why would they fucking do that? Like, it's so weird. But I do feel like just some of the scenes in this movie, it knows how to build up intensity. The subway scene is phenomenal. Oh my god. The ending, the theater settings in this movie, it's so well done. So well shot. Takes place in New York. It's fucking awesome. I mean, Sidney Prescott is in this movie, but this proves that the franchise has a lot more juice in them without their main legacy character. And that says a lot right there, if anything. But obviously coming in at number 1.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Scream, the original. I don't got much to say about this one. This one is an absolute classic. This movie is honestly flawless. It's super meta. It did what a lot of horror movies couldn't do back in the day. Like, after all the Friday the 13th sequels and Freddy Krueger sequels came out, it just got goofy, repetitive, and all this shit. But this movie balanced the horror element and the humor element, mashed it together, made it an absolute fucking flawless masterpiece. Standout characters, obviously. Neve Campbell is at her best in this movie, I think. I think she still has not topped her performance than when she was younger, so in this movie. But I absolutely am a killer for this movie. Definitely a good Halloween movie to watch. And this movie has some good kills. The killers are a little bit predictable, but I can forgive that because of Matthew Lillard's and Aldrich, Skeet Ulrich, I think his name is, the actors. I don't know how to pronounce it, but their performances are fucking awesome, dude. It's so freaking good. That's what made me forgive it. But this is an absolute classic, and that's why Scream 1 came in number 1 spot. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.